Hey guys, Mr. Cento here with another video. Today, we're going to be looking at how to overclock a GPU safely, step by step. Now you're going to need 3 pieces of software. I will put the links in down below. They are free, so, feel free to use them. First thing we're looking at is Gpuz. What this will allow me is, well, number 1 is to understand the state of my graphic card, but 2 is to give me the best sensors calibration that I can get. This will not lie to you like other pieces of software. It will give me the main thing you really want to look at is GPU clock, memory clock, GPU temp, fan speed is going to be important. GPU load, you will see it, but also another thing is the perfect performance cap reason. Here it will actually tell you if it's limited by power, if it's limited by temperature. The second piece of software you're going to need is Evga Precision X1. Make sure you download the latest version. I'll also put a link down below. Now, you're going to tell me, hey, Mr. Cento, I don't really have an EVGA card. I was like, well, I have an Asus card and it does work as well with Asus cards or MSI cards or whatever. So you can use this one. Now there is a pros and cons of using different pieces of software for different things. Not all of them are the best. I'm sorry to say, not the MSI Afterburner is not better than NVIDIA Precision. EVGA Precision X1 is not better than MSI. It's just, it depends what you really want to do and what's your priorities, right? So if you want to go gaming, if you want to do mining, if you want to do, it really depends what you're going to be using the GPUs for. Then the third piece of software you're going to look at is Superposition Benchmark. This will allow me to know the performance of my GPU before overclocking or before doing anything in terms of performance-wise increase. So what we'll do, I'm running a NVIDIA 3080 Ti, right? So we're gonna bring this over there. We don't need it yet. And start running a benchmark. 8K, I think in terms of VRAM, we're pretty good on that one. Run the benchmark now. This will allow us to give us a benchmark number to see how the overclock is doing, if it's going better, because there's going to be a point of no return where even if we keep increasing and we don't see any artifacts, there's no crashes or anything like that, what's going to happen is that it will give us a worse score, even if we increase the clock speed and it's not crashing. Right, so the benchmark's finished. I can actually get an idea of what the clock speed was. It pretty much stayed at 1755. GPU clock has definitely gone up from 52 to 66. Has my fan speed changed? Yeah, fan speed changed from 53 to 79 to even 80%. So that's quite good. So what we're going to do now is we got a base number of how the GPU is performing without any overclock whatsoever. So I've got 7189. In terms of overclocking, there's a lot of things to talk about. So I'm going to try to make it as shortest as I can. We've got overclocking for games, for specific games, and we've got overclocking for just general performance and to do other things with it. Now you will see that even if it's stable in these kind of benchmarking tools, if you open up a game, it might crash way before that. So what will happen, for example, as a game, I play a lot of Battlefield 2042 and the game can't handle a high overclock for me as well. For Warzone, similar kind of situation with the new map. The new old map, you can really push it quite hard, but lately for me, I can barely push the GPU, otherwise it would just crash on Warzone. And then other games where I can have literally 250 megahertz on top without a single issue, single artifacts, nothing, no problem. So what we're going to do is open up EVGA Precision. We have multiple things what we can do on EVGA Precision. First of all, I really want to look at is the power aspect. This will allow you to know if you have enough power in your system to run even overclock your GPU. So what the system is going to do is like, my CPU is overclocked. Yes. Scan. All right. So it scanned my system. It said that I had one GPU. One GPU was a GeForce RTX 3080 Ti. My CPU is an i9 12900K. That's correct. There's no HDD. There is 2 SSD. That's correct. And submit. Now this is going to open a new window. And it says I only need at least 847 watt power supply to be able to overclock the GPU safely. Now I've got 1000 watt in this system, so I'm all good in that perspective. So I'll definitely recommend to do that. The next thing is resizable bar. I will go through another video in that perspective and do some testing on resizable bar and also XMP. So stay tuned. The first thing we're going to do now is look at setup. And we're going to do start with operating system, start minimized, apply previous settings on load, and on check updates, you don't really need that on startup daily. Just do a monthly, that's fine. Click save, press setup again. Now we have different section within the overclocking system. We have the memory. So you could compare that, it's called VRAM basically, but you can compare that to the RAM in your system for the CPU. So you can imagine the GPU is like your CPU, and then the memory is like the RAM for your CPU, right? Similar thing, concept. And then we've got clock voltage for the GPU, and then we have power target. And then the fourth system is we got the fan speed. Now, first, what we're going to do is we're going to go into power limits. We're going to increase the power limits all the way up to 100. In my case, it's 107. It really depends on the VBIOS of your GPU. It will set a limitation of how much power you could overshoot, let's say, for that particular card. So some cards will even go up to 130, I've seen. And then you have other cards who are like, nope, 103, you know? It really depends. And then, I mean, for your GPU, for example, to reach 91 degrees, it's going to take a lot. Or you have a really bad case, I'm just saying, or it's really hot in your room. But if you can reach 91 degrees. So yeah, anyway, bring them together. That's fine for your system. The next thing what we're going to do now is we're going to look at memory. Start with the memory first. The memory, what you would tend to see is that the memory will be able to push further. But the only thing is the memory, at least in my testing, I saw less performance gain in terms of FPS in games over the GPU clock speed. Because for example, certain games like Warzone prefers Radeon graphic cards over a GeForce graphic card because of the higher frequencies of the clock speed that you can reach with the Radeon cards. That is the only reason why a Radeon card performs better than a GeForce card on Warzone, for example. Right, so here in terms of memory, I've done some testing already. And to have a stable, let's say, overclock for example, for Battlefield, in this case, I can only bring this up to 60. So I've done some testing. I could bring the clock speed all the way up to 600 in terms of memory. And in terms of clock speeds, I could bring it all the way up. I could bring up to 160, right? So we're going to put 160, hit apply. As you see, the numbers hasn't changed because we haven't really done anything yet. We just said that, okay, you can go 160 above the threshold that the graphic card already has, right? So here, what we can do is increase the voltage. Now, there's pros and cons of increasing voltage. When I increase the voltage, it will allow me to get a higher clock speed, but the cons as well is it's going to heat up the chip. And if it heats up the chip, it's going to throttle more. So there's pros and cons. There's pros of undervolting as well. We can make another video about that as well. And there's pros and cons of overvolting the graphic card. So it really depends on your application. Now we've got set it as it is right now, apply, and then we're going to set it to 1. And press save. All right, so now we've overclocked by 600 on the memory, and we've overclocked by 160 on top for the GPU clock speed. We've put the voltage at the maximum. You can play with it. You know, you can go 50, for example, or whatever. It really depends on how your particular graphic card performs. Now, the next step, these are 1, 2, and 3. The fourth step is the fan curve. Now, because I don't have an EVGA card, my fan curve doesn't show up. It's here normally. That is the only, I would say, the only cons of using EVGA piece of software with an Asus card, right? So this is going to be the one thing. Now, what I love about EVGA Precision X1 is this one button. It's called Boost Lock. Bam, 2160. Yeah, what that does, it says what it does. It basically keeps that graphic card overclocked to that point that you set it, in this case 2160, and it will stay there. Now, it will only drop down if, for example, it's reaching a power limit, a temperature limit, you know, those kind of things, voltage issues, and so on and so on. But in my testing, I've done some testing with Boost Lock and Boost No Lock. The Boost Lock gave me a higher performance in terms of clock speed, in terms of FPS, because it maintained that clock speed as high as it could, and entirely giving you more power in terms of FPS, in terms of the games, right? So it does give you slightly higher FPS. The only way you're going to notice the difference is by using testing tools. You're not probably going to notice it playing games. So you can use Boost Lock. It's not an issue, right? So we've set up Boost Lock. And what we're going to do now is do a benchmark. So we've got the results now, and we're looking at 75 and 91. If we look at the original numbers, so we went from 7189 all the way to 7591 with just an overclock. It's a free performance. I mean, I think probably this beats a standard 3090 easily. You know, feel free to correct me, but I'm quite curious if it does as high as 7591 from box standard, you know what I mean? So now, the way of doing this and doing this the best way is actually doing it step by step. So we're going to open up EVGA Precision X1. Now, you might face where, for example, the certain games will crash because of, mainly it's because of, well, driver and GPU, or the game sucks. You might have to decrease memory and GPU clock. Now, if you have a lot of patience like me, go at it 10 times, right? So 150, for example. Click apply, save, and there we have it. Because what was going to happen here is that I'm going to turn off the Boost Lock just to cool it off a bit. And now test the game. If the game is still crashing, go back into it, bring it down to 40, for example. Click apply, open up the game again. Right, and then you can see the limit basically of what that game is going to be able to handle. Now, I know, for example, some games will handle here 500 easily, but others we can only handle 60 plus, right? And here will be 100, and this will be 100. I'm quite happy that, for example, some game, well, like for example, lately Battlefield 2042 is quite difficult to handle with any overclock. I'm quite happy that actually it will still run with a small overclock on it, because I know I'll get slightly higher performance. But that's it for EVGA Precision. There is no other secrets I can share. Normally you'll be able to do the fan speed, the fan curve here on certain graphic card. On mine, unfortunately, I can't do it. I've tried updating EVGA Precision X1, it didn't work. I've tried all sorts of stuff, but it just does not work. I would forget this bit. The curve, do not do the scan thing. It just do it manually, do it by yourself, and look at the difference. I mean, it's a night and day. Look at this. It is literally a night and day. And I mean, in terms of FPS, it does make a huge difference. Now you can already start with just the power and don't do the clock speed. You will notice slightly a difference there as well. And then you can move on to the GPU clock speed, for example, even the memory. Up to you. There's no one rule for all. That's it for me. If you enjoyed, please don't forget, drop a like, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later. Bye bye.